When I moved into Willow Pines, I didn't expect much more than quiet evenings, and maybe a wave or two from the neighbors. What I didn't realize was that I had just joined a community, run by an HOA board that treated garden gnomes like public threats. It all started with a small garden in my front yard. Tomatoes, some lavender, rosemary, and a few decorative stones. My grandma always said a garden keeps the soul steady, so I kept it simple and clean. I added a small wooden trellis, hung a bird feeder, and placed 2 gnomes underneath a bush near the walkway. They weren't neon or creepy, just classic smiling little guys holding watering cans. A week later, I got the letter. Violation. Unauthorized front yard modifications. Immediate removal required. Now, I read the rules before moving in. The guidelines said no artificial lawn ornaments over a certain height. Mine were only 6 inches tall. I emailed the HOA and politely explained that my gnomes didn't violate any rules. I even attached photos with a ruler next to them. 3 days later, I got a second letter, another violation. This time for unauthorized edible planting. Apparently growing tomatoes in the front yard was now a concern for neighborhood standards. I thought it was a joke, but they weren't laughing. Marla, the HOA secretary, knocked on my door that weekend with a clipboard and a condescending smile. She said the board was concerned that my yard didn't match the rest of the community. I looked down the street. 4 houses had dead grass. One had a half-finished fountain project abandoned last summer. Another had plastic flamingos that had faded to gray. But sure, my lavender and tomatoes were the problem. So I asked if I could appeal at the next HOA meeting. She smiled and said, of course. I showed up with a binder of photos. Neighbors had started coming by to compliment the garden. One kid even painted a little sign that said, "Gnome, sweet gnome," and stuck it in the dirt. At the meeting, I stood up and calmly made my case. I pointed out that nothing in the bylaws banned herbs, vegetables, or gnomes under regulation height. I explained the health benefits of growing your own food and how much joy the garden had, brought to passing kids and elderly neighbors. The board didn't care. They said my yard wasn't in keeping with the traditional look of the neighborhood and gave me 7 days to remove it all or face escalating fines. So I made a decision. I expanded the garden. I added benches, hung wind chimes, painted a little wooden archway over the walkway, and put out a guest book. Then I posted about it on the local town Facebook group. Come visit Willow Pines' secret garden. Within a week, people were driving in from nearby neighborhoods. Kids were taking photos with the gnomes. Retirees were sitting under the trellis and reading. Someone from the local paper showed up and asked if they could do a story. I said yes.